Oh, yeah, the rutabagas, yes.
Oh, the rutabagas. Can anybody spell that?
No.
I can't even pronounce it.
And I think the suppers were fried eggs and potatoes. That was
and
standard.
the leftover oatmeal.
Yeah.
Fried oatmeal.
Yeah.
Which was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, with all of the water around here, if Dave turns around with his camera and shoots toward the house, between here and the house were giant cottonwood trees many years ago, all cut down now. But when in the wet water season, there was a giant lake right where that green truck is.
And you got stuck in it.
I remember, even though Mother said never go through there, in order to pick the eggs, you had to walk through that mud puddle first. And I got stuck, and Tom dug me out, I think. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
Well, you did, because Pat reminded me. You went in the house and told Mother, and you came back with a little shovel and dug me out. And I don't know, you probably had to pick the eggs that night.
No doubt. I probably wasn't happy about that.
Well, standing at this barn, or Gene, let me see that jackknife. This morning, Gene and I were putting up some signs, and he pulled out this jackknife. Now, when you see that jackknife, what do you think of?
Dad's jackknife.
Think of our dad's jackknife when probably the coldest Saturday winter morning there was, we all castrated pigs. And our task was to hold them down. And by the end of the day, we all had blisters in here. And Dad pulled out his knife, and first he would spit on that little carborundum blade, sharpen it up a little bit, and he would dip it in a little solution. I don't know what was in that solution, do you? And then he would perform surgery. Now, in other parts of Yankton County, they would eat mountain oysters, but we never did. Are those called mountain oysters?
Yeah, that's right.
But we never developed that.
We ate everything else, including the chicken feet.
We ate the chicken feet?
We made soup.
I don't remember.
Yeah, chicken feet soup. Yeah.
Oh, the chicken feet.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
Well, Gene, is that knife originally from here?
No,
No?
but it's been everywhere.
Well, I think we're going to go in the house now because we represent the old. We're the voice of Christmas past. And Pat had 6 girls, and most of them are in the house. So we're going to go in the house now, and they can tell us how it was here in their time. Well, we're on our way to the farmhouse, but I'm happy to meet our sister-in-law from Baltimore, Jean Monier Lyons, my brother Frank's wife. And Jean has been coming to the farm the last couple years, and she has the advantage that many of us do not, kind of as a fresh, new sight and appreciation of the farm. How have you enjoyed the Lyons family farm so far?
Oh, it's a wonderful place to be. It really is. I've been here. This is my 3rd visit. I now know what a honey wagon is. I've learned a lot.
Which is very amusing that you would know a honey wagon, because in Baltimore you have a certain expression, I believe.
Well, we have an expression in Baltimore. If you are greeting people, you always say, "How you doing, hon?" So that's part of being from Baltimore. It's nice to be in South Dakota, and I am a new Midwesterner and enjoying it thoroughly.
Well, and I wanted to tell you, Jean, that after last night, Jean brought with her from Rock Island, Illinois, the entire evening meal. You would make a very fine addition to the farm community here, because it's an ancient custom, at least with some people, to bring in the entire meal when they go visiting. And it was outstanding.
Well, I thank you for that, but I had to prove that we effete Easterners can cook.
Well, I do think you show great promise that you would blend in very nicely with this farming community.
I appreciate your saying that, Bob. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, we'll move along now before the auction begins, and we're just in time because some of the other ladies are driving up. So actually, we'll just walk over here and get another actually, she's not his sister-in-law, she's my wife, but she's a sister-in-law to my brothers. So, no, this is the morning when we're interviewing people other than Lyons' brother. This is my wife, Nona Lyons, who has
rescued a couple of...
She has robbed the telephone insulator collection, and Nona has been coming here for many years, since really 1970.
That's right.
And has always enjoyed the farm.
Yep.
And she was out early this morning helping to rescue school desks and certain items for some of our nieces. How have you enjoyed the Lyons farm?
Oh, wonderful. And today we found, in cleaning out an old shoe repair bucket, we found an old can of Prince Albert tobacco, which Bob remembers his dad used.
So probably this was my father's can of Prince Albert. He had very few vices, but this was one of his pleasures. And my older brother Gene told me, what I do not remember, that they used to call up the local grocery store, probably Mr. Banks, and ask, do you have any Prince Albert in the can? And the guy would say yes, then they would say, well, let him out. But I never did anything like that.
But I was just out in the field there collecting a few of these insulators and looking at all that old equipment and thinking about the history of all of those machines and of this farm.
And the people using them.
And the people using them, and thinking it was really an interesting thing to think of all the families who had been here and all the people who had ridden those machines, and as you said, all the feet who sat that were under the table in the kitchen here. So I think it's nice to talk to Pat and Pearl and the girls about their experiences here. But a visitor, I always loved coming to the farm.
Well, now, as I told our sister-in-law, Jean, I feel she has blended in very nicely with the farming community and all. And you have always blended in starting many years ago. And we look forward, even though today is the farm auction of machinery, we will still always be happy to come back here, and the farm will still be here.
Yep.
Well, then it's a good time to go inside.
Good.
We're standing here on what I always called the porch in the Lyons family farm, and we're focusing in on an aerial shot of the Lyons farm. Here is the farmhouse. This is where I'm standing. Here, yesterday we taped out here. Here are where the 2,000 pigs a year were raised. Here are the two silos and the big barn, as we called it. And we're going to take a good shot of the table here in the porch, because this table symbolically represents the family farm in a way. Probably 1 million feet have been under this table. There were 9 of us when I grew up here, and then Pat and Pearl and their 6 girls were here. Thousands of hired men and relatives, wanted and unwanted. And some years ago, Pearl had this table stripped down. There was about 1 inch of red and green paint of all kinds. And maybe the camera can take a shot of those very beautiful legs down here. Pat sits up here. Behind me is to the east, so in the morning the sun is rising up rather beautifully over the barn. And my wife, Nona, in August of 1995, at about, I suppose, 6:30 or 7 in the morning, took that shot, standing right where I am. And that is the corn crib, which is up for sale today. And the sun is rising up over the east. But Pat would sit here, Pearl at the other end, and shuffle back and forth. And this is also where they have the staff meetings every morning, where the men and the relatives and whatnot would arrive, and somewhere in the course of the wonderful kolaches and the sausages and the eggs, orders for the day were given and assignments were made, I believe.
Well, not too long ago, you know, all these chairs were filled. We had 3 on one side and 3 on the other. I mean, just every day with the family.
With your girls,
With the
some
girls.
of whom we will meet shortly.
Yeah. Susan will be here in a minute. Kathy's coming over. Carol said she's not going to talk then, so.
But yesterday we talked a little bit about the history of the farm, and Pearl has in front of her some photographs. Our parents bought the farm from the Schlafly family. And Pearl, you can help out here. I believe these photos are from Elma
Schlafly Nelson that lives in Washington. She's dead now.
Well, maybe, Pearl, if I could suggest, if you hold this or read what's there, and then the cameraman can see Well, how about
that
this?
That was in the early spring of 1908.
And yes, it says Schlafly House, early spring 1908. Mother and Louis, I guess, standing at the fence. Alma on the back porch with a lap full of kittens. Well, and then there is an old log house showing with the chimney to the right and rear of the back panel. Dave, our cameraman, turn your camera out the window to the right. And although there's nothing there now, there used to be what we call the old house. And prior to that, I believe, am I stating this correctly, was the log house represented. And, you know, this really is the back door of the house, but it's the only door we ever use. Only peddlers and certain religious sects would come to the front door, which is on the other side of the house.
Then this picture was taken in 1911 or 1912 after the, let's see, the living room, which is this first part here, and the bedroom upstairs was added on. The log cabin was taken out, and that's when the frame structure was put in the place of the log cabin, and at that time it was called the bee house because Mr. Schlafly raised bees and he kept all his equipment in there. After your folks moved here,
1929.
and they used it as a summer kitchen and had the cream separator out there.
I forgot that. My mother had the old burner stove, the little burners, what did we call that? And especially she would...
The little kerosene stove.
The kerosene stove, and she would fire it up especially for canning and whatnot.
And this was taken in 1918 following a big heavy snowstorm, either in January or February of that year. And this was taken about 1929 in the springtime.
Well, and Alma writes on the back that it was the springtime, probably not long before her dad died in 1929. And that's when my father and mother and my grandfather, really, James Donahue, appeared on the scene and bought this farm, which is 67 years ago. But I realize Pat and Pearl have been here for really longer even than my parents were. You've been here for 37 years, I believe, which actually doesn't seem that long.
And from what we can figure out, this house is at least 100 years old.
I bet.
Because an old neighbor that used to live down the road, he died in his 80s, and he said he could remember, that's been quite a few years ago, and he could remember when this house was sitting here.
Yeah.
At one time. When we redid the bedroom in the back part, it was all square nails, like they used in the olden days.
Come on in, Marcia, and sit right down. We're just chatting a little bit. And I'd like to introduce you. You're part of the Lyons family. This is Marcia, Tom's wife, from Texas. And Marcia has been out taking the last inventory of things available for relatives at the auction. And I think she got some wonderful finds out there. Along with the school desk, what else did you find?
An old box. I took one insulator off of each tub. I didn't think they'd miss one. Just enough for Pat to put it in storage.
Until we come back and say
until they deliver. See, I'm waiting for the delivery service to happen.
Somebody said, well, how is Tom and Marcia going to get all that stuff back? I said, yes.
Did he discuss the delivery charge with you?
A bag of grapefruit. It's out in the car.
Well, Marcia, you've been coming to the Lyons farm for some years. How has your life been here on the farm?
How has my life been? Well, now that the pigs are gone.
A little better.